You are listening to Mining Stock Education, where you'll learn from the top leaders in the natural resource sector and uncover quality mining investment opportunities.
We are very, very bullish from a technical perspective, and that's just based on the work that's been done to date and that we're currently doing and the evidence we've been able to collect so far. The opportunity is rare and unique, not just to an investment, but to the entire copper market in the world right now as a major potential discovery. It certainly has the endorsement of Teck with buying 9.9% of the company. Newmont is there as well, and several other majors missed that equity first toehold into the company. So it's probably got one of the more competitive backgrounds that I'm aware of, and one of the more probable exploration opportunities that exist. The fact that we can drill for 12 to 13 months consecutively without having to finance, that's going to give you the shot that the reason why you bought the shares and why anybody would invest. The most rewarding return you can get as an investor is off a discovery hole when you're drilling. And that's when speculation gets really exciting because of the opportunity and the timing of what we're doing.
I'm Bill Powers. This is MSE. Thanks for tuning in. And in today's show, we're going to get an update from a show sponsor, Coppernico Metals, that we haven't heard from in a couple years. This is actually the longest exploration project that I've held in my portfolio, going back actually to 2018 when I first invested in Orin. Coppernico was spun out in late 2020, and we talked about it on the show at that time. So returning guest, Ivan Bebek, welcome back onto the show. You're the co-founder, CEO, and third largest shareholder of Coppernico behind Teck and Newmont. So welcome back onto the show to talk about the company.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to finally be back on the show with you, as great things are finally happening for the company.
So when we last talked about this spin-off, Coppernico, and its potential trading again, that was in late 2020. Just for those that haven't heard the story, Ivan, could you bring us up to speed? What has happened in the last 4 years with Coppernico?
Sure. I know a lot of your listeners have followed us from before, but just a quick high-level overview. We had some great successes in the last 20 years. Found a big gold mine in Africa, in Keegan. Share price went from 10 cents to $9. Caden was our second venture, where we drilled 100 holes in Mexico. And in 2015, we were able to sell our 2014 to Agnico Eagle for $200 million. That gave us the ability to swing a little bigger with the bat and go for something that could make a top 20 mine discovery in the world. We found copper, gold, and silver assets. At the flexion point of 2020, right as COVID was starting, we decided to split the assets into three, thinking we could capture specific silver opportunities in tier one silver, specific gold assets in Peru gold, and copper asset of consequence at the time was Sombrero, which was a project we started exploring back in 2015. Where things kind of missed for us, for about I think 1 quarter, both tier one and Puri traded combined above the highest share price of Orin. But quickly after, commodity prices had suffered and interest rates went up dramatically, and we went into about a 3-year kind of downturn. The one thing we weren't able to deliver right away was the trading of Coppernico, and we were not able to get social access agreements. And we were well on our way right before COVID hit. But unfortunately, you need an assembly to approve these type of agreements and negotiate them with the communities. And when that took place, COVID took place, we were supporting people with medical supplies when the government in Peru couldn't, because they were so bogged down with so much challenges with COVID. But we weren't able to push through a social access agreement at that time. And then we saw a big political shift in 2022 when Castillo was impeached. At that time there, about a week later, we finally got our social access agreement. And about a year later from then to last November, we were able to quantify that agreement with all the approvals, the signatures, and register it in Peru, as well as pursue drill permits, which we finally got in April of 24th of this year. So it's been a long wait. It's been 9 years for me and a lot of shareholders cultivating this opportunity. In May, we raised $20 million or $19.4 million in 2 weeks. It just shows you what's much more difficult to find is the asset, and the big ones take time. I've always advertised that we like really big swings and we love the big risk because that's the big reward that's appealing to us as investors. But there is a price of admission, and it's an expensive one. And the exciting part is now we're at the forefront of seeing what that weight and what the project could actually develop and turn out to be. So a really exciting time, a long wait, and a lot of patience was forced. But it was, we never took our our foot off the gas and persevering through the communities and getting the access and the drill permits we have today.
Ivan, when you and I first met in 2018 at a Mines and Money, we spent an hour talking about Sombrero. That was why I originally bought ore in stock. Refresh us on the Sombrero project. What is its prospectivity, and why did Teck write such a large check recently into the company because of it?
Yeah, great question. So it's got a pretty amazing history. I mean, this is in a part of Peru called Ayacucho, and it's got a very prolific mining trend called the Ando-Wireless Yari mining trend. It hosts mines such as Las Bambas, which currently is number 11 in the world in terms of copper producers. It's got mines such as Constancia, Tintaya, Las Chancas, some of Peru's largest mines, and Peru has some of the biggest mines, copper mines out there. Nobody had explored the western side of this mining trend because of a thin layer of volcanic cover, and it kind of masked the rocks, and hence the name Sombrero, and Sombrero in Spanish means hat. But through a few erosional windows and some inspirational thinking by a gentleman by the name of Miguel Cardozo, who is credited with the discovery of Yanacocha, a 60 million ounce gold discovery or mine now in Peru, he saw the erosional window and thought there could be more underneath it. And we worked with some young geologists from Newmont that caught on to his theory, and we had access for 2 years. And what we found was massive skarn targets and a cluster of intrusions. And two things there to understand is skarns are predominantly very valuable because they carry a lot more grade than porphyries would. They're not as wide, they don't have as much volume, but they tend to be a lot richer. They will be variable when you drill and explore them, but they'll be some of the most profitable type of copper deposits that you can explore on the earth, right? We found not only 230 meters of 0.5% copper or 110 meters of 0.7% copper entrenching on surface. There were some historical drill holes on the edge of a 10-kilometer long skarn structure that we're going to be testing. And those holes drilled the same grade, about 0.5% copper in 100 meters from surface. Those holes weren't targeting copper. Nobody has targeted this for copper before us. And so wherever we got exposure on surface, we saw a lot of copper and gold. And now we have, the first targets that we're going to drill. Out of the 10 kilometers, we'll get access to drill 7. And we're going to test the first 300 meters from zero. The project's also blessed with really good infrastructure. There's water, power, roads, power lines right over the property. And it's near a couple of nearby towns for a workforce. So it kind of hits the boxes on scale. The clusters in size are the same size as Las Bambas' clusters that make up that mine. The age that this mineralization was formed is Eocene, which is the same as all the mines on the eastern side of this major mining trend. And then lastly, the stratigraphy, the rocks, all of the rock chemistry that forms the mineralization is the exact same as all the mines next door. So it has so many analogs. And I'll say, Bill, waiting is one thing. You can't buy time. You can spend it. And there's no way to get time back for people, but hopefully the reward is there. It's big enough. But persevering through the volatile markets and going through the delays and spending the time we did to persevere on the asset, it was purely driven by two things: the obvious nature of the mineralization and the scale and the potential of it being a big discovery, but also the large companies that were reviewing this asset under NDAs, as many major companies do. And eventually Teck was the one to make the investment. The group that was involved was some of the largest mining companies in the world. One of them, their heads of exploration, Keenan Jennings from BHP, he joined our board. He retired from BHP, even though he was pursuing Sombrero with BHP. He's actually been to the project, but he joined our board after he retired from BHP because we had not gotten social access and drill permits while he was at BHP. Teck was somebody that saw this early in 2018. They recognized the opportunity immediately, and they just were waiting patiently until we got our drill permits. And once that happened, the phone rang, and in a very competitive environment, they went first, and they took on our terms, an equity pricing that we feel was very fairly priced for them, us, and other shareholders. And now they've got front seat. They're our largest shareholder. Newmont is second. They've been there for quite some time, and now we're all going to see what happens next.
And did you choose them, or did they choose you? How would you define that?
Yeah, I'd say that, the alignment between our visions for the project and how we want to approach it is very, very, very complemented by their views of it. They have a great team there. There's some familiarity with our team and some of the members that are running exploration for Teck. I think it was a great relationship from the beginning, but it was just waiting until, the permits were there. The other majors that we had spoken to, a lot of them wanted project level financings, and you're seeing that across the sector. We all know of several big copper assets, but copper assets are generally very expensive and very hard to finance so far, even though money's pouring into the copper space. So a few companies we saw have done these big deals where majors are earning to 70% of the asset. And it's not always a bad thing. In the case of Sombrero, we had great support for some great shareholders, and we achieved some new shareholders to help us get to this point of where we could actually drill the project. And so when we chose Teck, they chose equity versus a project level deal. And that was the first, the start of a great relationship with them. And it's really an honor to have them as a major shareholder. And so, yeah, we somewhat chose each other, but they won the bidding war amongst the other majors that were in the room.
And Ivan, you kept 100% of the project's upside because you like big swings and you like big rewards. That's part of your executive philosophy, right?
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't, waiting this long, and the hardest thing here to find is the opportunity. And the money was 2 weeks to raise 19.4 million. That was easy, compared to the 9 years it took to get the asset. And that is because of the big swing and keeping 100% of the upside. It was personal checks being written, family members. It was a grind. It was not easy, but it was something that we believed in. And yeah, I want 100% of the upside for our shareholders. And once we can reveal that in the first place and monetize it, then we can consider other options. But right now, it's got a great shot, and it's falling on perfect timing. Timing of a major discovery is critical. It's actually just as important as the discovery that's being made. And if you look at some of the major assets, I won't name them in particular, it would be unfair to do that, but there's some big mines around the world that are in the development stage, but they've diluted dramatically with the share price. And the share prices are way undervalued to where they would be if they made those discoveries today. Our benefit is we're falling into perfect timing to make a major copper discovery, as there's about $47 billion that has gone into investments into copper. I believe it's a record in all time. And that's the market we're going to get to go see if we have a top 10 or 20 copper mine in the world, but more importantly, have a quality mine. And that's the other thing people have to think about with copper is quality. And there's no shortage of holes being drilled with 200 to 400 meters of 0.3 copper, 0.2 copper. In a good copper market, years from now, those will be interesting. But today, the most valuable copper discovery that you could have would be one that starts at surface and that has really good grade and really good infrastructure. Sombrero's advertising to have 10 kilometers of prospective strike length where we could drill continuous copper in areas. And it has incredible infrastructure, and the grade on surface to date has been spectacular for something with such a great geometry and infrastructure. That's the difference, and that's what really separates the opportunity from any other copper assets out there. So the timing to go after it, the infrastructure, and the fact that everything we're testing is going to be in the top 300 meters to start.
So Ivan, how do you view the Sombrero project differently now than you did even 4 years ago? You brought on Keenan Jennings from BHP. Talk about the fresh set of geological eyes you got looking on this project, and how do you personally view it differently?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, when you get into these projects, Bill, you fall in love with them early when you start to see all the bellwethers of something that could be big and possibly a very rich discovery. We hired Tim Kingsley, VPX, about a year and a half ago. And it took him 6 months before he actually gave us a thumbs up on the project and 2 site visits. Tim's a very, very conservative geologist, or a prudent geologist would be a more specific word I like to use, but it takes a lot for him to believe. He has to go touch, see, and feel. At the same time, Keenan Jennings joined our board in January of this year. He was the VP of exploration for BHP. His background is not just geological, he has an MBA as well. And the first thing he brought in as a theme for us, which Tim was already on this track, but he complemented it very well, was fit for purpose, approach where you do what's necessary. It's very easy to get carried away with numerous studies, but how quick can we get to drill it? And the drill is going to tell us more and give us a lot of knowledge, versus any surface study we can do. Having somebody of Keenan's caliber from a major, the largest miner in the world like BHP, it gives us 3 things. It gives us foresight and what this project means and how to drill it intelligently to reveal the opportunity in front of the major mining companies, which we hopefully eventually will look to get purchased by. Secondly, it gives us a wealth of experience of things he's seen around the globe. Antonio Ribas is on our board as well, which was the VP Geosciences for BHP. And then thirdly, Keenan's been to Las Bambas and he's mapped it back in 2000. He's been to Sombrero twice now. So his involvement at the board level to give us really good input and direction and give good guidance to Tim Kingsley, Christian Rios, and the rest of the team is invaluable for us. And it's going to really help us position the project geologically into a very, very intriguing monetizing event for shareholders. So it's a massive compliment. It's another validation from a third party that was not on the project. And what are we seeing now that's different than what we saw before? We've really spent time on the structural geology since Tim's been back to site. He has a structural geological background, and we're finding really good targets that have a structural component, which is critical when drilling skarn systems. That's been the biggest revelation there is Tim's work done today. So very exciting, very strong team technically, and very proud to have people from some of the largest mining company in the world on the team.
So Sombrero is basically of projects. What you call a target could really be a standalone project in and of itself. So talk us through what are the first targets you're going to pursue and what would define exploration success at those targets?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first target we're going to drill was called Sombrero Main. We're now calling it Cascabamba because we don't know where the main part of the system is. As you've mentioned, there's multiple clusters to go and explore, and each cluster could be its own deposit, as you've mentioned, and that would be standalone. So it's a big system. There's like a district look where you could have multiple mines. Success for us, we would love to see anywhere around 50 meters or wider, anywhere around 0.5%, 0.4% and above in terms of grade. Why 50 meters? Because that's the open pit width that you'd be looking for. And why 0.4, 0.5%? I mean, the team is not really too concerned about grade because there's so much grade on surface. We have over 1% copper, we have up to multi% copper, and we have lower grade as well. We think grade in a skarn system like this is going to be the easier part, but we want to see the big widths. If you go to the back of our presentation on our website, you can see the highlights of Las Bambas. And their holes range from 30, 40 meters, 0.3, 0.4, up to 150 meters of 1.5% copper. We're going to have surprises in our view to the upside. We're going to have surprises to some misses. And, we're certainly not afraid to miss because our financial position is quite substantial. We're going to start drilling in July. We'll drill right up until December. And then we'll pause for Christmas for obvious reasons. And then we'll resume January. And we can drill for at least another 6 months, uninterrupted without having to raise more capital. And then we have extra G&A capital to get us towards the end of next year. So the company is in a really remarkable financial position to not only drill, from surface, all the low-hanging fruit, but to drill continuously as this copper market comes alive on the commodity pricing, investments grow. The part that's going to draw a lot of speculation and a lot of early value, if we start to see the mineralization we're looking for, those highlights that I've talked about in the back of our presentation, it's going to be because the scale of what we're doing is huge. 10 kilometers of continuous skarn targeting is massive. And this is the first 2 targets out of 7 targets that we have. And there's about 3 more targets that are going to come online. That's the hardest thing to comprehend. Sombrero's in the background of that we're talking about right now. It's a massive, massive area. A lot of endowment. There is a thin layer of volcanic cover from 0 to 40 meters thick of this volcanic cover. Some areas a bit thicker. So there's a lot of reasons. There's geophysics. There's different reasons to bring new targets to life. So as we drill the main area where we can drill 48 holes from 38 pads, we're going to be bringing other targets into the pipeline, expanding our permitting, and we're going to keep going. I'd like to say that it's going to take 3 holes. And that would be as much as you need to really give the third dimension in new areas. And then it'll take at least 2 to 3 years before we know this is not there. And that's the kind of longevity that really excites us as explorers, especially when we're looking at something and trying to quantify the scale. So a lot of ifs until those first holes come out. We are very, very bullish from a technical perspective. And that's just based on the work that's been done to date and that we're currently doing and the evidence we've been able to collect so far.
Ivan, Coppernico showed up in my brokerage account some months ago, but I can only sell it. I can't buy more shares, and I checked in a couple of my accounts. So it's on the gray markets, but it's not trading in Canadian markets yet. Can you give us an update on the stock, please?
Yeah, sure. We did not apply for that listing. The gray markets are, even below pink sheet markets. I can't buy shares on the gray markets personally. I've tried to buy a number of shares there. Some people can. I don't know how they have access or why, but some firms allow you to do it. As you said, you can only sell it. What we're doing is we're applying for a Canadian listing right now. And once we have the Canadian listing, the rule is it takes 30 days before you can apply for a U.S. listing. And even though we trade on the gray market under the symbol CPPMF, it does not represent that anywhere near the value of the company. For example, we did our $19.4 million raise at 50 cents a share Canadian, and we're trading at 30 cents Canadian equivalent on the U.S. side of the market. So we've financed well above where it was trading at in the gray market. And, there's a lot of people limited that can't buy it there, but that's where it is right now. So we hope to have a listing update by the end of June. And we're hoping to trade sometime in July with the drills turning in mid-July. That's the current time frame right now for drilling.
Can you elaborate a little more on your expectations for trading out of the gate? There are some longtime holders that thought they would have had liquidity by now, but there's also some people that like the project that didn't buy into the financing. So what are some of the dynamics around trading that you expect?
Yeah, so that's, it's a complete black box. Like there's no way to predict where we're going to open. We're just starting to market the story, and I'm glad that we have at least 4 weeks to really share it in the perfect copper environment. When we went to raise the money, there was a lot of people that did not participate in the financing. Either they could not buy something that wasn't trading, they had their own restrictions, or they wanted to see where it opened first before they bought. And, since that financing took place, things have gotten better at the project. There's some big revelations coming together. And at the same time, there's also a lot more interest in the copper space. So I'm anticipating a very exciting open. And I'm not too worried about where it opens. And, I think within a month of trading, it's going to find some really good value because the opportunity is rare and unique, not just to an investment, but to the entire copper market in the world right now as a major potential discovery. Certainly has the endorsement of Teck with buying 9.9% of the company. Newmont is there as well. And several other majors missed that equity first toehold into the company. So it's probably got one of the more competitive backgrounds that I'm aware of and one of the more probable exploration opportunities that exist. This certainly does not guarantee success, but if you own shares previously and you waited with frustration and anxiousness for it, as many of us have, I'm a shareholder first and a CEO second. I've been anxious as well. Our timing and what we have is something that I doubt I'll find again in my exploration career. That's how worthwhile the decade-long wait is to me as an investor and as a CEO of an opportunity like this. That's finding perfect timing. So I would encourage you to see what happens with the drilling. The fact that we can drill for 12 to 13 months consecutively without having to finance, that's going to give you the shot that the reason why you bought the shares and why anybody would invest, the most rewarding return you can get as an investor is off a discovery hole when you're drilling. And that's when speculation gets really exciting because of the opportunity and the timing of what we're doing. And so that's going to be consecutive for at least a year, possibly a lot longer. And yeah, perfect timing with it.
Ivan, you said you're an investor first. So how much money have you put into Auryn, the predecessor of Coppernico, relative to what you've taken out in terms of salary?
Yeah, it's a great question. My investment into Auryn, as well as Fury Teal 1 and Coppernico combined, is over $6 million. Recently, I put in about over 300,000 into Coppernico. I certainly don't, I've taken less out of it in a salary. My salary is more of a tax equation. So I can still enjoy capital gains on things that's a better tax rate if we do get the end goal of selling the company. But I've definitely not taken out near the $6+ million that I've put into this company and the predecessor. So that's why when I talk about being a shareholder first, it's how can I monetize this for shareholders? And what is the best outcome I could possibly achieve? When looking at our budget and our spending, we've been very prudent and we've watched every expense we can carefully. It's as if it's our own bank accounts we're trying to manage through tough times. But those guardrails have been great. Our VP of exploration comes from the base metal industry. He worked with Trevally exploring for zinc for years, and that's a very tough market to raise capital. And so he's well trained by being very conservative with his spending. And so I think at this stage, Bill, the heavy lifting, the heavy expenditures have certainly been made. In a cash perspective, we're about $35 million, including G&A and money spent to get to this conversation. But at the same time, it's the time that's more expensive, and that's been spent as well. So going forward, the only place my budget really changes is if we're going to do more, drill more, and our ratio of money going towards the project right now is 70% versus capital that's used for G&A and marketing. And that's a very good ratio going towards the project, and it will improve as we spend more moving ahead. So we're going to keep that in mind, because you make money off of what you find, but it's very important to us that we do create a very, very intriguing global investing market so that we can monetize the successes that we think we're going to have with the project.
So if drilling starts in July, we should expect a more detailed exploration outlined in the next coming weeks, I would expect?
Yeah, the next two announcements of consequence, we just announced yesterday that we have hired AK Drilling to be our drill contractors, a very established drilling firm that's drilled with a lot of the majors in Peru with no incidents of anything to mention. So a very safe company to work with that provides a really high quality drilling for us. And second from that is going to be we're going to announce the drilling of the drill plans of where we're going to put the holes and why. That's coming next. And of course, the third announcement would be the listing plans, where we're going to list the company and give everyone some more timing. Our effort and energy is as soon as possible. But we are, in the hands of the TSX, and we're just waiting for them and going through the natural process that you go through when you pursue a listing. I'm not supposed to speculate on timing, but I'm very hopeful that we do have a listing up in July, right around the time that we're drilling. Many have asked me, why would you drill before you list? And because it costs, we have a burn rate, and the sooner we drill, sooner we get to answers of this big opportunity, the better. And we have a lot of holes to drill here in the next 12 months.
Since you don't control the listing date, if we don't list, you are funded for at least 6 months with a lot of drilling, and you're potentially funded with the interest you have beyond that if you wanted to continue advance, even if you weren't trading again. Is that correct?
Yeah, if we don't list and I'm not drilling, I'm funded for at least 3 years or 4 years. If we don't list and I'm drilling, I'm funded for 18 months. So I can continue for quite some time. We're in a really good cash position here. And I think that's important to take from this interview is, it's a lot of programs start small. We talk about a minimum 3,000 meter program. We're aiming for 13,000 meters or more with the current capital we have. And we'll have a pause in December, but that consecutive drilling that's going to be the key catalyst to drive share price performance, share price interest. And, there's still the if. Do we have it? How good is it? We're going to miss an area, so we're going to hit an area. So there's going to be a lot of variability, but because we have quite a bit of working capital here and drilling capital, it's going to give us a lot of more room to miss and get it really right. Or if we're lucky enough, it happens really early. So we'll do our best to pick the best targets and first, but right now we have no idea where the best hole is going to be. We just know there's a lot of really, really good targets to go test.
And in the meantime, the best way for investors to follow the story is at the company website?
Yes, absolutely. Coppernicometals.com is where I would encourage everyone to follow it. There's going to be constant interviews, a lot of the progress, news releases, and soon enough it'll be in your stock portfolio. But right now it's on our website,
okay,
Coppernicometals.com.
Orn What Resources was a founding show sponsor of this show. So thank you for that. And thank you for your continued sponsorship. And we'll follow up throughout the summer and into the fall as you drill, Ivan.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate it.